So the verse of Jesus' response to this question of why Jesus is eating and drinking with the publicans and sinners, in Mark and in Luke it ends, "They that are whole need not a physician, but they that are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." However, in Matthew, there is another verse added that's not in Mark or Luke of Jesus' response to this question. After saying, "They that be whole need not a physician, but they that are sick," the very next verse, "But go you and learn what that means. I will have mercy and not sacrifice." And then he finishes with the same verse in Mark and Luke. "I come not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." I'm going to leave that verse as it is. After they that are sick. It continues on with only Matthew. "But go you and learn what that means. I will have mercy and not sacrifice." And then the colon. "For now," he continues in Luke, "I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." Mark, "I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." Okay, that is the exact same, all three. I is gray because that's also in Matthew. "Not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." All of that is all three. So this gets down to the very purpose of this project. That added sentence in Matthew that's not mentioned in Mark and Luke, "But go you and learn what that means. I will have mercy and not sacrifice." That was Jesus' words too. You could say it should have been in Luke as well, but they just didn't do that. They left it out, which is fine. It's their prerogative. It's their record. They included things that Matthew didn't say, but that's why I like this project, and I think that it'll be the best way to read the Gospels. You have everything there. And now the question about fasting. Matthew 9:14. "Then came to him the disciples of John, saying..." But remember, I mentioned this earlier, because the end of Jesus' response to this question at verse 18, "While he spoke these things," because clearly this also says that the disciples of John came to him, those two hints make it so that this is a different event. So I'm going to push this portion in Matthew later on until after the exorcism of the Gadarene demoniac. I'm just going to record the question from Mark and Luke because it's from the Pharisees. Where I'm going to continue is only Mark and Luke, beginning with Mark 2:18, where in Mark it's speaking of the disciples of John. "And the disciples of John and of the Pharisees used to fast, and they came and say to him, Why do the disciples of John and of the Pharisees fast, but your disciples not?" But again, where it says, "and they came to him," most likely, it's following through with what is mentioned in verse 16. "When the scribes and the Pharisees saw him eat with publicans and sinners, they said to his disciples." So it's probably the same they. The scribes and the Pharisees, not the disciples of John, here in 18. And Luke 5:33, "And they said to him, Why do the disciples of John fast and make prayers, and likewise the disciples of the Pharisees, but yours eat and drink?" Again, in both Mark and Luke, they're talking about the disciples of John, but it doesn't say the disciples of John are here. If they did say that, that would be a big problem, and I honestly wouldn't know what to do. But it doesn't. It's mentioning them, doesn't say they're there. So the first line is, "And they said to him," but in Mark it says, "And the disciples of John and of the Pharisees used to fast, and they came to him and said, Why do the disciples of John and of the Pharisees fast?" It's kind of a repeat. If I was to just get rid of this first section, 18a, these words, "and the disciples of John and of the Pharisees used to fast," if I was to just get rid of that, that would make this a lot simpler. But it does repeat in this very verse, verse 18. It repeats who it's talking about, the disciples of John and the Pharisees. B, they came to him. C is the question, why do the disciples of John and of the Pharisees fast? It's really annoying. But I'm not going to cut it out. I hope that my explanation is enough for those who have a question of why it's going like this. And even though it will be confusing when you're reading through it, because it looks like perhaps the disciples of John are here asking him, and then I'm just repeating myself later on, but here I am explaining it. So I'm going to start with that. "And the disciples of John and of the Pharisees used to fast. And they said to him," and they came and say to him, "Why do the disciples of John fast? Why do the disciples of John?" Yeah, okay. So verse 33 of Luke is like the second half of verse 18 in Mark 2. Alright, so I just got to start with Mark then. And the disciples of John and of the Pharisees used to fast, Now I can combine them. Continue on in Mark, the same verse. And they came and say to him, and verse 33 starts, and they said to him, then they go on with the exact same question. So they come and say to him, and they said to him, or and they come and say. Well, and they is both. So I'll just start with that. And they. Now I could choose between said to him or come and say to him. Said or come and say. Past or present. Well, used to fast is talking about the past. But the question right before, they're asking, why is it that your master eats and drinks? This is present tense. But Jesus' response is past. He said to them. So maybe I should have present tense question and past tense answer. That sounds weird. Kind of backwards. They should ask in the past tense, and then in present tense is the response. But it could go that way. Jesus said to them in his next response, and he said to them in his next response. And Jesus said it's said in all three for his next response. They come and say. So Mark only, come and say, now both to him, comma. Why do the disciples of John fast often? Why do the disciples of John and of the Pharisees fast? Why do the disciples of John? Why do the disciples of John? That's both. Why do the disciples of John? And then Luke is just fast often. Mark adds, and of the Pharisees. So Mark only, and of the Pharisees. And then Mark ends with just fast, and your disciples fast not. But Luke says fast often, and make prayers. Oh, but then it also has the Pharisees, and likewise the disciples of the Pharisees. You know, I think I kind of like this in Luke, because it's as if the scribes and the Pharisees asking him this question, they first point out John the Baptist's disciples, and then at the end, oh, by the way, we do that too, but yours eat and drink. As opposed to just saying, why do the disciples of John and the Pharisees, even though it's them, the Pharisees asking the question. So it's like saying, why does he and us? Why do we do this, but you don't? That's a lot more words. So, and of the Pharisees, or likewise the disciples of the Pharisees. Oh, wait, look at that. In Luke, the word the disciples, continuing on with of the Pharisees, that's all italics. That was added by the translators. So this verse would have originally been, and likewise of the Pharisees. So it's almost the same as from Mark, and of the Pharisees. The only word that's definitely there is likewise. So in that case, I think I might just add in there likewise into this passage from Mark. So that it would read, why do the disciples of John and likewise of the Pharisees fast often? Yeah, I'll do that. I'll just put in the word likewise from Luke only, because otherwise I'd be using the words that the translators added, and I'd be using their sentence structure from a later portion in the verse than what's definitely there earlier in Mark's gospel. But I think this is better, and likewise of the Pharisees. So after that, fast is in both, however often is in Luke. And then Luke continues, and make prayers, and then it stops, because the next word should be the same, but yours. But your disciples. I'll have your disciples, not just yours, but yours both, and I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to mention the S in Mark. Oh, no, I'm sorry, the S in Luke. I'll leave it. Look at that, it's capitalized in Mark. Your. And then disciples is only in Mark. But your disciples fast not. In Luke it says, but yours eat and drink. Everyone eats and drinks. The question is here, obviously, about fasting. No one is going to fast constantly their whole life. Even those who do fast often are still going to eat and drink sometime sooner or later. So because of that, I think that I should leave out this eat and drink and have fast not. Everyone eats and drinks, even those who fast. So fast not, still only from Mark. The question mark is from both. Now, the response from Luke, and he said to them, and Jesus said to them. Well, I'm going to put Jesus instead of just he. So from both, and now from Mark only, Jesus, now back to both, said to them, comma, can you make the children of the bride chamber fast? Can the children of the bride chamber fast? That is more description. Can you make, as opposed to just can the children of the bride chamber fast? So can is from both. These are red letters, Jesus words. Now from Luke only, you make, and then from both, the children of the bride chamber fast. The children of the bride chamber fast. Bride chamber is one word in Luke, but two words in Mark. Why can't the Gospels agree? Bride chamber. Should I make it one word or two? Bride chamber. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'll make it one word. Both the children of the bride chamber. Or maybe I should make it two words. This applications dictionary is trying to correct me, saying it's two words. And I just had the thought, perhaps I should make it two words and have the space only be black highlight showing that it's only from Mark. Yeah, alright, I'll do that. Just the space is highlighted black. Bride chamber. Fast. Comma. While the bridegroom is with them. While the bridegroom is with them. That's the same. Question mark. But the days will come. Oh, so there's an extra verse in Mark. As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. Then it continues, but the days will come. Yeah. Well, the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken away from them, and then shall they fast in those days. But the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken away from them, and then they shall fast in those days. So that is the same verse. There's just extra in Mark. So, Mark only. As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. Period. Now both. But the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken away from them, comma, and then shall they fast in those days. You know, I keep thinking about this from Matthew. It's the same response. And I know that Matthew is out of order, so he could have put it out of order, but I don't want to say that verse 18 is just totally wrong, unless I have to. Yeah, I'll just keep going.